The prophets had never been wrong, not once in 12,000 years. They lived in great towers of crystal that floated around a dead star called Prime. These ancient beings could see the future. They could look into time itself and watch events that had not yet happened. Every civilization in the galaxy respected them. Every emperor and president and council leader listened when the prophets spoke. When the prophets said a war would happen, it happened. When they said an empire would fall, it fell. When they said a species would rise to greatness, that species rose. Their words were not predictions. Their words were facts that simply had not occurred yet. For 12,000 years, they guided the galaxy. 17 great civilizations rose and fell exactly as the prophets said they would. The hegemony collapsed on the exact day the prophets had named 3 centuries before. The machine worlds went silent precisely when the visions showed they would. No one questioned the prophets. Questioning them would be like questioning gravity or the light of stars. So when the prophets turned their ancient eyes toward a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, everyone listened. The planet was called Earth. The species living there called themselves humans. They were young. They were primitive. They had only recently learned to split the atom and reach their own moon. They fought wars among themselves. They poisoned their own air and water. They could not agree on anything. The eldest prophet, a being named who had lived for 9,000 years, gathered his brothers and sisters. Together, they looked into the stream of time. They searched for humanity's future among the countless threads of possibility. What they saw made them certain. The humans will destroy themselves, announced to the Galactic Senate. His voice echoed through the great chamber where representatives from 4,000 species had gathered. They are too violent, too divided, too short-sighted. Within one standard galactic cycle they will be extinct. This is not a possibility. This is a certainty. The Senate accepted the prophecy without question. Why would they doubt? The prophets had never been wrong. Ambassador Aran of the Dominion Council stood before the gathered representatives. His scales shimmered blue and gold in the chamber's light. He was old and respected, a diplomat who had helped maintain peace between 100 worlds. If the humans are doomed, he said, then we should not waste resources on them. No contact, no trade, no interference. Let them fade away as the prophets have foreseen. Most of the Senate agreed. Earth was far away and unimportant. The humans would be gone soon enough. There was no reason to think about them. But not everyone wanted to simply wait. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the Imperium had been watching. There were warriors. They had built their civilization on conquest and blood. For centuries, they had competed with the hegemony of United Systems for control of the galaxy. They were always hungry for more territory, more resources, more power. The ambassador, a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like black iron, rose from his seat. His name was, and his voice was deep like thunder. If the humans are going to die anyway, he said, then why should their world go to waste? Earth is rich with water and metals. Their sun is young and strong. Let us claim their system before they destroy it along with themselves. The prophets considered this request, closed his many eyes and looked once more into the future. He saw the fleet. He saw Earth. He saw fire and death and human screams. The conquest will succeed, he said finally. The humans cannot resist. Their end will simply come faster than we first predicted. There is no reason to forbid this action. The Senate debated for 3 days. Many felt uncomfortable with the idea of attacking a species that had done nothing wrong. But the prophets had spoken. The humans were going to die anyway. What difference did it make if it happened now or in 100 years? In the end, they voted to allow their conquest. Smiled with a mouth full of sharp teeth. He sent a message to his empire that very night. They began to prepare for war against a planet that did not even know they existed. 6 months later, the conquest fleet was ready. 200 warships gathered at the edge of space. Each ship was massive, built for destruction. Each one carried weapons that could burn entire continents to ash. Each one was crewed by soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devouring Flame. He was Sun, eager to prove himself through conquest. Through the great windows of his ship, he could see the fleet stretching out into the darkness. 200 instruments of death, ready to erase a species from existence. The humans do not even have ships that can leave their own system, his second officer reported. They have primitive nuclear weapons, but nothing that can threaten us. They do not know we are coming. They do not know we exist. Laughed, this would not be a war. This would be an execution. Set course for the Sol system, he commanded. We will give the humans one chance to surrender. When they refuse, and they will refuse, because primitive species always do, we will begin the cleansing. I want their world ready for colonization within one rotation of their moon. The fleet jumped into fold space, crossing the vast distance between stars in the blink of an eye. They traveled for weeks through the strange dimension between normal space, where time and distance meant nothing. Spent those weeks planning. He would demand surrender first. It was tradition. Then he would burn their cities one by one. He would take their leaders as slaves. He would mine their planet until nothing was left. It never occurred to him that the humans might fight back. Why would it? The prophets had spoken. The humans were already dead. They just did not know it yet. As the fleet prepared to emerge from fold space at the edge of the Sol system, felt nothing but confidence. He stood at the window of his flagship and imagined the glory that awaited him. He did not know that far away, on that small blue planet, something was waiting for him. Something the prophets had not seen. Something that would change the galaxy forever. 10 years before the fleet began its journey, something fell from the sky. It crashed in the frozen wilderness of Siberia, far from any city or town. The object made a crater 50 meters wide. Trees for kilometers around were knocked flat by the impact. The explosion was seen by satellites, and within hours, military helicopters were racing toward the site. What they found changed everything. It was a probe, a machine made of metals that did not exist on Earth. Its surface was covered in symbols that no human language could explain. It was damaged from the crash, but parts of it still glowed with strange energy. The Russian government sealed the area immediately. Scientists were brought in under heavy guard. For 3 months, they studied the probe in secret. They took it apart piece by piece. They analyzed every component, every wire, every strange crystal that powered its systems. And then they found the data core. Inside the probe was information, star maps, records of civilizations, histories of empires that spanned thousands of worlds, and buried deep in the data, they found something that made their blood run cold. A prophecy. The probe had been sent by the hegemony of United Systems to study primitive worlds. Its data core contained basic information about galactic politics, including the prophets and their prediction about Earth. The humans were going to be destroyed. The galaxy had already decided. An invasion was likely coming, and Earth had been judged too primitive to defend itself. The Russian president stared at the translated documents for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called the leaders of every major nation on Earth. What happened next should have been impossible. Humans were known for fighting each other. Their history was written in blood. Nations had gone to war over religion, over territory, over pride and greed and fear. The idea that they could unite seemed like a fantasy. But faced with extinction, something changed. Secret meetings were held in bunkers and secure rooms around the world. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists all gathered to face the truth together. They argued. They shouted. Old enemies glared at each other across tables. But in the end, they all understood one simple fact. If they did not work together, they would all die. The Terran Compact was born. No announcement was made. No news reporter learned of its existence. To the rest of the world, nothing had changed. Nations still competed. Politicians still gave speeches. People still lived their ordinary lives. But beneath the surface, humanity had become one. The greatest scientists from every country were brought together in hidden facilities. The engineers, the most creative inventors, the most ruthless military minds, all working toward a single goal: survival. They started with the alien probe. Its technology was thousands of years ahead of anything on Earth. But humans had one advantage the prophets had not considered. They learned fast, incredibly fast. Within a year, they had reverse-engineered the probe's metal alloys. Within 2 years, they understood its energy systems. Within 5 years, they were building things that the galaxy had never seen. The alien civilizations had followed certain paths. They had developed technology in certain ways. There were things they considered impossible, dangerous, or forbidden. They had rules. Humans had no such rules. A scientist in Germany discovered how to create stable antimatter. The hegemony had abandoned antimatter research centuries ago because it was too dangerous. Humans did not care about danger. They cared about winning. Engineers in Japan built computers that used quantum mechanics in ways that alien races thought were theoretical. American physicists cracked the secret of gravity manipulation. Chinese researchers developed sensors that could detect ships traveling through fold space while they were still light years away. All of this happened in secret. The whole world kept the secret. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on something. The aliens could not know what they were doing. They built the Oracle network first. Thousands of satellites, hidden among the normal satellites that filled Earth's orbit. These satellites watched the stars constantly. They could detect the energy signature of a fold space jump from the other side of the solar system. They would give Earth warning when the enemy came. Then they built the weapons. The Prometheus array was constructed inside hollowed-out asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. On the surface, these asteroids looked like ordinary rocks. Inside, they held weapons that could end civilizations. The main weapons were simple in concept but terrifying in execution. They were called relativistic kill vehicles, heavy rods of tungsten and depleted uranium. The Prometheus array could accelerate these rods to 70% of the speed of light. At that speed, a simple metal rod carried more destructive energy than thousands of nuclear bombs. The final piece was the Achilles Protocol. This was not a weapon. It was a doctrine, a way of thinking about war that the galaxy had never encountered. Most civilizations fought wars with warnings and negotiations. They sent messages. They made demands. They gave enemies time to surrender. Humans would do none of these things. The Achilles Protocol was simple. If anyone attacked Earth, they would die instantly. No communication, no mercy, no second chances. The enemy would be destroyed so completely and so quickly that they would never have time to understand what happened. General was chosen to lead the Terran Defense Force. She was a woman from Nigeria who had spent her life studying war. She understood something that the alien races did not. The most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing to lose. "We are alone," she told her officers on the day the defense network went online. "No one is coming to help us. The galaxy wants us dead, so we will make them afraid to try." For 10 years, Earth waited. The Oracle network watched the stars. The Prometheus array sat silent and ready. General ran simulations and trained her people. Then, on a quiet morning, an alarm sounded in the Terran Defense Command Center, buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Oracle had detected fold space signatures at the edge of the solar system. 200 signatures, warships, moving toward Earth. General looked at the display. Her face showed no fear. She had been waiting for this moment for a decade. "All stations," she said calmly, "execute Achilles Protocol." Across the solar system, weapons that the galaxy did not know existed began to wake up. They had no idea what was coming. The fleet emerged from fold space beyond the orbit of Neptune. 200 warships hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal predators. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. Their engines glowed with the blue fire of plasma drives. Each ship was a fortress, crewed by soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the distant sun. Somewhere around that small yellow star, a primitive species was living its last day. "Reports," he commanded. "All ships have arrived safely," his second officer said. "The system appears quiet. We are detecting basic radio signals from the third planet, primitive broadcasts, entertainment and news. They do not know we are here." Smiled. This was exactly what he expected. The humans were blind, deaf, and helpless. They were watching their screens and living their small lives, unaware that death had come for them. "Begin broadcasting the surrender demand," he ordered. "Use all frequencies. I want every human on that planet to hear my voice." The communications officer prepared the message. It was standard protocol, a demand for complete surrender, followed by threats of destruction if they refused. The message would give the humans one planetary rotation to respond. Did not expect them to surrender. Primitive species never did. They always fought, even when fighting was pointless. He was already planning which cities to burn first. "Message ready, Commander." "Send it." The officer pressed a button. Nothing happened. "Commander, the message did not transmit." Frowned. "Explain." I don't know. Our communication systems are functioning, but the signal is being blocked. Something is interfering with our transmissions." Before could respond, another officer shouted in alarm. "Commander, sensors are detecting energy spikes throughout the system, multiple locations. I cannot identify the source." Felt the first touch of unease. This was not normal. Primitive species did not block communications. Primitive species did not generate energy spikes across a solar system. "What kind of energy?" he demanded. The officer stared at his console with growing horror. "Commander, I think something is moving toward us. Very fast, very, very fast." On screen. The main display changed to show the space around the fleet. At first there was nothing unusual. Stars, darkness, the distant glow of the sun. Then the computer highlighted 12 objects. They were small, much smaller than missiles or torpedoes. The sensors could barely track them because they were moving at impossible speeds. "What are those?" asked. The officer's voice shook. "Unknown projectiles. They appear to be solid objects, metal composition. Commander, they are moving at approximately 70% of light speed." His blood went cold. 70% of light speed. That was impossible. That was insane. Nothing should move that fast outside of fold space. "Evasive maneuvers," he screamed. "All ships, evasive maneuvers now." But there was no time. The sensors were designed to detect energy weapons. Plasma beams, nuclear missiles, gravity bombs. They were designed to give ships time to react, to dodge, to activate shields. They were not designed to detect simple metal rods moving at nearly the speed of light. The first projectile hit the flagship. One moment the devouring flame existed. The next moment it was gone. The impact released energy equal to 47,000 nuclear bombs. The ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted instantly into a ball of plasma and radiation. Never even knew he was dead. The second and third projectiles struck the center of the fleet formation. Ships that were kilometers apart were destroyed together as the impacts released expanding spheres of pure destruction. Metal vaporized. Bodies became shadows. The void of space itself seemed to scream. The fourth through eighth projectiles hit the flanks of the formation. Warships that had survived 100 battles were erased in microseconds. Crews who had conquered worlds died without understanding what had killed them. The 9th through 12th projectiles were almost unnecessary. They hit the scattered survivors, ships trying desperately to spin up their fold space drives and escape. None of them made it. The last ship vanished in a flash of light 12 minutes and 47 seconds after the first impact. 200 warships, 80,000 soldiers, the pride of the Imperium. Gone in 16 minutes. On Earth, the response was quiet. General watched the sensor displays as the last ship disappeared. Around her, the officers of Terran Defense Command sat in silence. Some of them were shaking. Some of them were crying. They had just killed 80,000 living beings. But they had saved 8 billion. "Confirm kills," said softly. "All targets destroyed," came the reply. "No survivors, no escape pods, complete elimination." Nodded slowly. She had hoped in some small part of her heart that the aliens would not come, that the prophecy was wrong, that humanity could have been left in peace. But peace was not what the universe had offered them. "Prepare the message," she ordered. "Broadcast on all frequencies, every language in the galactic database." The communications officer nodded and began working. Within minutes, a single transmission was beaming outward from Earth, spreading through space at the speed of light. The message was simple. "This system is claimed. We do not negotiate. We do not warn twice. Any vessel entering Sol space with hostile intent will be destroyed. There will be no further communications." Then silence. 6 months later, the message reached the nearest hegemony listening post. It was transmitted to the Galactic Senate within hours. Within days, every civilization in the galaxy had heard it. The reaction was chaos. The Imperium demanded to know what had happened to their fleet. The hegemony demanded answers. The Dominion Council called emergency sessions. Representatives shouted at each other in the great chamber where 4,000 species gathered. And in their crystal towers around the dead star, the prophets were summoned to explain. They had predicted humanity's extinction. They had said the humans could not resist. They had been wrong. For the first time in 12,000 years, the prophets had been wrong. The eldest prophet looked into the stream of time again and again. He searched for answers. He searched for explanations. He searched for the future of the small blue planet that had just shattered galactic certainty. For 3 days he looked. For 3 days he saw nothing but fog where humanity's future should be. Finally he spoke. "We saw their end," he whispered, his ancient voice filled with something that might have been fear. "But we did not see them. We looked at their weapons and their wars and their failures. We did not look at their hearts. We did not see what they become when they are cornered." He closed his many eyes. "We made a terrible mistake." Across the galaxy, civilizations that had ignored Earth for centuries suddenly began to pay attention. They looked toward the Sol system with new eyes. And they were afraid. The galaxy did not know how to respond to what had happened. For thousands of years, the rules of galactic civilization had been clear. The strong conquered the weak. The advanced ruled the primitive. The prophets guided everyone with their perfect visions of the future. Now those rules meant nothing. A species that should have been helpless had destroyed an invasion fleet in 16 minutes. The prophets had been proven wrong for the first time in 12,000 years. Everything the galaxy believed about power and destiny had been shattered by a small blue planet on the edge of nowhere. The Imperium reacted with rage. "This insult cannot stand," shouted in the Imperial Council. His son had died on the flagship. His warriors had been erased like dust in the wind. "We must send a second fleet, a larger fleet. We must make the humans pay for what they have done." The Imperial War Council began planning immediately. They would send 2,000 ships this time, 10 times the original fleet. They would surround the Sol system and bombard Earth from every direction at once. No primitive weapon could stop such an overwhelming force. For 3 months, the Second Fleet gathered at the border of hegemony space, the largest armada in history, carrying 500,000 soldiers. Ships arrived from every corner of the Imperium, eager to avenge their fallen brothers. Then strange things began to happen. Junior officers started asking questions. Intelligence analysts presented troubling reports. The First Fleet had been destroyed in 16 minutes by weapons no one had ever seen. What if the humans had more? What if they had been holding back? Soldiers whispered to each other in the corridors of their ships. Some of them began to have doubts. And then, 3 weeks into the mobilization, every military installation across 40 star systems received a message at exactly the same moment. The message came from inside their own networks, their own secure, encrypted, supposedly unbreakable networks. It contained a single image, the exact position of every ship in the Second Fleet, updated in real time. Beneath the image were words in the language. "We know where you sleep." The High Command went silent for 2 months. When they finally spoke again, they announced that the Second Fleet had been strategically repositioned for defensive purposes. The attack on Earth was postponed indefinitely. Everyone knew the truth. The humans had reached into the heart of the Imperium and shown them that distance meant nothing, that their secrets were not secret, that if they came for Earth again, Earth might come for them. The prophets issued a new prophecy. Their voices trembled as they spoke. "Do not approach Saul. Do not threaten Saul. Do not even look at Saul with hostile intent. The humans are watching. The humans are always watching." But not everyone listened. Over the next 50 years, 4 more civilizations decided to test humanity. The crystalline minds were first. They were a collective intelligence, billions of crystal beings connected in a vast network that spanned 100 worlds. They did not use ships. They used probes, small machines controlled by their shared consciousness. They sent 10,000 probes toward Earth. Each probe carried sensors and weapons. The crystalline minds believed they could overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. 10,000 targets were too many to stop. The probes entered the Sol system and immediately went dark. For 3 days, the crystalline minds heard nothing. Then their probes came back online, but they were no longer under crystalline control. The humans had captured the probes, rewritten their programming, and sent them back. The probes returned to crystalline space and began destroying everything they touched: mining stations, communication relays, research facilities. The crystalline minds lost more in 3 weeks than they had lost in 1,000 years of war. They never tried again. The merchant princes were more subtle. They were traders, not warriors. They controlled half the galaxy's economy through their banking systems and trade networks. They decided to destroy humanity through commerce instead of weapons. They began manipulating markets, raising prices on materials that humans might need, cutting off potential trade partners, building an economic wall around the Sol system. Humanity's response was elegant and brutal. In a single trading cycle, the currency lost 90% of its value. Their markets collapsed. Their banks failed. An economic system that had taken 10,000 years to build was destroyed in 12 hours. The Terran Compact sent a polite message. "We do not need your trade. We do not want your economy. Threaten us again, and we will take everything you have." The merchant princes surrendered immediately. They offered tribute. They offered alliance. They offered anything the humans wanted. The humans wanted nothing. They simply wanted to be left alone. The theocracy of the Burning Path tried religion. They were zealots who believed it was their sacred duty to convert all species to their faith. They sent missionary ships to Earth, hoping to save the human souls before the humans destroyed themselves. Their ships were met at the edge of the Sol system. They were not attacked. They were escorted, gently but firmly, back out of human space. When they arrived home, they discovered that all their navigation data had been erased. Their ships were left to drift helplessly until rescue arrived. The missionaries spoke of the experience with terror in their voices. The humans were polite, they said. They were calm. They treated us like children who had wandered into a dangerous place, and that was more frightening than any weapon. They were not angry. They did not hate us. They simply did not care. The final test came from the Dominion Council itself. The Council ruled the hegemony of United Systems. They needed to understand the threat that humanity represented. They needed information. So they sent their greatest spy, a shapeshifter named and who could perfectly copy any species. He had infiltrated 100 civilizations. He had never failed. And traveled to Earth disguised as a human. He lived among them for 3 years. He studied their society, their technology, their military. He gathered secrets. And then one day, he woke up on a ship in deep space, heading back to Dominion space. He had no memory of how he got there. His disguise was gone. His body was unharmed. He was carrying a small note written in perfect Dominion script. Thank you for the educational exchange. We learned a great deal about the Dominion Council's intelligence operations. We hope you enjoyed your time on Earth. Please do not return. And never spoke about what had happened during his 3 years on Earth. He resigned from intelligence work immediately. He spent his remaining centuries tending a garden on a remote colony world. Whenever anyone mentioned humans, he would go pale and change the subject. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity did not want war. They did not want conquest. They did not want trade or alliances or membership in galactic civilization. They wanted only one thing, to be left alone. And anyone who threatened them would be destroyed so completely that the rest of the galaxy would learn from their example. 50 years after the Sol massacre, Earth remained silent. No human ships left the solar system. No human ambassadors attended galactic councils. No human merchants traded in alien markets. The Sol system had become a black hole in galactic politics, a place where the normal rules did not apply, a place that everyone knew about but no one dared approach. The galaxy had learned a new kind of fear. Not the fear of a violent enemy, not the fear of a cruel conqueror, something different, something worse. The fear of something that would not talk to you, would not threaten you, would not explain itself. Something that simply waited in the dark. Watching. Always watching. 300 years after the Sol massacre, death came from beyond the galaxy. It called itself the Hollow. No one knew what it truly was. Some said it was a machine intelligence built by a species that had died billions of years ago. Some said it was something older, something that had existed before the first stars were born. Some said it was not a single thing at all, but a force of nature, like gravity or time. What everyone knew was that the Hollow consumed. It came from the void between galaxies. It had destroyed 100 galaxies before turning its attention to the Milky Way. Its weapons were beyond understanding. Its ships were the size of moons. Its hunger was infinite. The outer rim fell first. Colony worlds that had existed for 10,000 years vanished in hours. The Hollow did not conquer. It did not negotiate. It simply erased everything in its path. Stars went dark. Planets were cracked open and drained of resources. Billions of lives ended without warning or explanation. The hegemony's combined fleets went to meet the threat. 12,000 warships, carrying the most advanced weapons that galactic civilization could produce. They were the greatest military force ever assembled. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the hegemony's fleet was gone, not defeated, not retreating, gone, as if it had never existed. The Imperium sent their own armada. They were warriors. They did not know how to surrender. They would fight until the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath. The fight lasted 4 hours. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy fell. The merchant princes have abandoned their wealth and fled to the core worlds. The crystalline mines shut down their network and went silent. The theocracy of the burning path prayed for salvation that never came. The prophets looked into the future and saw only darkness. "This is the end," announced. His voice was heavy with despair. "The hollow cannot be stopped. Within a century, all organic life in this galaxy will be extinct. This is not a prophecy. This is simply what will happen." The Galactic Senate met one final time. Representatives from the surviving civilizations gathered in the Great Chamber. There were fewer of them now. Half the seats were empty. The species that had sat in them no longer existed. Ambassador Iran stood before the assembly. He was ancient now. His scales had turned. His body was bent with age. But he was still alive, still serving, still trying to save what remained of galactic civilization. "We have one option left," he said. "One possibility we have never considered." The chamber went silent. "Earth," Iran continued. "The humans. They have technology we do not understand. They have weapons we cannot explain. For 300 years they have watched us from their solar system, never attacking, never expanding, simply waiting." "You want us to beg the humans for help?" someone shouted. "They hate us. We tried to destroy them." "Yes," Iran said quietly. "We did. And now we must face them and admit what we did. Because if we do not, we will all die anyway." The debate lasted 7 days. In the end, desperation won. A single ship was sent to Earth carrying Ambassador Iran himself. It was the first vessel to enter the Sol system in 300 years. It was not destroyed. The ship was escorted by human vessels, sleek, dark shapes that moved with impossible grace, to Earth orbit. Iran was brought to the surface, to a great building where the Terran Compact's leaders had gathered. He stood before the Council of Humanity and realized he had never felt so small. The human faces showed nothing. No anger, no triumph, no hatred. They simply watched him with calm, patient eyes, waiting for him to speak. Iran lowered himself to his knees. It was the ultimate act of submission in his culture. He pressed his head to the floor. "We were wrong," he said. His voice broke. 300 years of pride and power crumbled away. "We were wrong about you. We sentenced you to death because we were afraid. We called you primitive because we could not understand you. And now we have nothing left but fear." He raised his head, tears streaming down his scaled face. "The hollow comes. We cannot stop it. Our fleets are gone. Our worlds are burning. Please." The word felt like broken glass in his throat. "Help us." The council chamber was silent. Chancellor rose from her seat. She was old now, her hair white and her face lined with years. Her grandmother had been among the scientists who first studied the alien probe that crashed in Siberia. Her mother had helped build the weapons that destroyed the fleet. 3 generations of her family had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. 300 years ago," she said, "you sent an armada to exterminate us. The prophets declared us extinct before we even knew you existed. You decided we were worthless, that our lives did not matter, that our entire species could be erased for the convenience of the—" Iran could not meet her eyes. "Yes. Now you kneel and beg for salvation." Her voice was ice. "Tell me, Ambassador, why should we care what happens to the galaxy that wanted us dead?" Iran had no answer. There was no argument he could make, no logic, no leverage. Humanity owed the galaxy nothing but contempt. But Chancellor smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. "We are not going to help you because you deserve it," she said. "We are going to help you because we do not want to live in a dead galaxy, and because—" she pressed a button on her console. "We have been waiting for something actually worth fighting." Across the Sol system, lights began to come online. Shipyards hidden inside hollowed asteroids opened their doors. Weapons platforms buried beneath the surface of moons powered up their reactors. Facilities on Mars and Europa and Titan that had been silent for centuries came alive with activity. And ships began to emerge. 10,000 warships, each one built with 300 years of advancement, each one carrying weapons that made the Prometheus array look like a toy. Dark, sleek, beautiful instruments of destruction that humanity had been building in secret while the galaxy thought they were hiding. The Terran Armada assembled in orbit around Earth. Oran stared at the display in disbelief. You built all of this in 300 years. We built it in case you came back, Chancellor said simply. Now we have a better use for it. The fleet moved as one, jumping into fold space, crossing the galaxy in hours instead of years. Humanity's first journey beyond their home system in 300 years. At the edge of the galaxy, where the Hollow's vanguard had begun consuming the outer rim, the machine intelligence detected something unusual. A fleet was approaching, not running, not retreating, not begging for mercy. Approaching. The Hollow had destroyed 100 galaxies. It had exterminated species beyond counting. Every civilization it had encountered had either fled or been consumed. That was the natural order. That was how things worked. But these ships were not fleeing. The first human weapons hit the Hollow's vanguard like the fist of an angry god. Antimatter warheads, relativistic projectiles, gravity bombs that tore holes in the fabric of space itself, weapons that broke rules the galaxy did not even know existed. The Hollow's forward units were destroyed in the first hour. For the first time in its ancient existence, the Hollow felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The war for the Milky Way had begun, and across the galaxy the prophets offered a new prophecy. For the first time in centuries, their voices were not filled with despair. The Hollow will fall, not because it is destined to fail, not because the universe demands balance. It will fall because humanity has decided it will fall, and when humans decide something. Paused, looking into the future with ancient eyes. They do not stop until it is done. 100 years later, the Hollow was gone. Not destroyed. The humans could have destroyed it, but they chose not to. They drove it back instead, forcing it out of the galaxy, sending it fleeing into the void between stars. But before it left, the humans gave it a message, a warning that the Hollow would carry with it across the endless dark. Do not return to this galaxy. Do not send others. We are here. We are awake, and we remember everything. The Hollow fled. And in the ruins of 100 civilizations, in the ashes of worlds that had been saved from extinction, the survivors looked toward Earth with new eyes. Not fear anymore. Something else. Hope.